Okay. Hello. This is episode
Hey,
9 of the Linsider. Today I have Greg Bradley and Lee Anthony Smith with me. Welcome, guys.
hey,
How you
how's it
doing?
going, Jason?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's a wonderful day because I feel like it's a reunion, a virtual reunion of sorts.
Three the hard way.
Yeah, like you saw, like all these other classic movies do their reunions during the quarantine, and I would say ours is going to be the best one.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. War the reunion.
Yes. Yes,
Or as we properly call it, Rogue.
Rogue. Yes.
Rogue.
Yes,
You know, so I know you guys because you guys wrote the movie known as War with Jet Li and Jason Statham. There's a very interesting story of why that movie became known as War because that wasn't the original title. But let's just start there, and then we'll get into personal introductions later. But why don't we just talk a little bit about the movie? So people, to give us some context, War is a movie starring Jet Li with Jason Statham. It came out August of 2007, and it was wide release. Lionsgate distributed, was the studio. I think over 2,000 theaters, so quite wide release. First weekend did pretty well, $10 million in opening weekend.
Yeah.
I have the numbers here. It's 22 million domestic box office and 41 million worldwide box office. And then from what I understand, it did really well. Like where it really crushed it was in home video.
Yes.
Oh, when it came on DVD, I remember I remember it. I think this is one of those. I think it's one of those. What do they call it? The effect. Where your memory is different than what you think it was.
Is it the butterfly effect? No.
Yeah, kind of the butterfly effect. It was what's it called? The Mandela effect. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Mandela effect. Because I thought we were number one when it came out on DVD, but technically I looked back over it not too long ago, and we were number 2. But yeah,
Who was number 1?
No.
No, it was number 2. It came out number 2 on DVD.
Who dare be number 1 that week?
No,
on New Year's Day. Yeah.
No. I think we were number 1.
Well, I look back. I thought
I'm going to stand by. I'm going to stand by that one. We're number 1.
Well,
we're
it's the
number 1 on
Mandela
DVD.
effect, right? It's the Mandela effect. It's not what
Well,
I remember, but
what I remember was that we were the top 5 of the movies that came out on theater as far as the amount of money that it made. But the Nanny Diary docked up their numbers. So that so when Sunday came, because Sunday they used to do the weekend where the weekend they were on the news, they were talking about the top 5 movies.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden the top 5 movies, the Nanny Diary was number 5. And I remember thinking, well, wait a minute. I was certain
we were the Nanny.
Yeah, and then it turned out Monday, and see what happens is Monday you had the correct amount, and we were number 5 of the top grossing films of that year or that weekend.
That week
for
right.
that weekend. But they would do that because they knew that more eyes were watching the news on Sunday. And so by the time that they figured it out, then it kind of didn't even really matter because most people were already looking at the news. They were looking at the top 5.
And if memory serves me correctly, the Nanny Diaries was also a Weinstein production.
There you go.
And that is why we had to change our title from from Rogue to War, was because
they had like a label called Rogue, or what was
No, they had an alligator movie that came, but here's the irony. It came after we did.
Yeah.
So meaning
I remember this, and I thought it was such bullshit.
Yeah, because we had the title first. We were in production, and then Lionsgate, for whatever reason, found out that that the Weinstein also had a movie called Rogue, but they were the ones that blinked, and because they didn't want to mess with the Weinsteins, which was annoying.
Yeah, and they were upset, and it's interesting with the history of that because when we went out wide with the script, we went to we went to the Weinsteins first.
Mhm.
And for some reason, they didn't jump on it because it was kind of when the script when we went out wide with it, it was a pretty hot property at the moment. So when we went out with it, I think within like a couple of days, Lionsgate jumped on and they made the deal with us. But Weinstein's, I guess they lost out, and they were really upset that they lost out on the project.
There you
and
go.
I think they kind of had a vendetta
Against
out for
Lionsgate?
us. Well,
Against the
against
everything,
the
the project,
because
everything.
I go, okay, we'll get them back, so we'll make them change their title and that kind of
Well,
thing.
you know what? Where are they now? There you go.
Let's get 'em.
There you go. Comma's a bitch.
Or, you know what? I mean, there's a lot of Weinstein stories. I mean,
Yeah,
so yes,
right.
Karma. I was like, I was waiting for Karma. I was hoping Karma would work faster, but
Mhm.
yeah, it eventually she did her job.
But
Yes.
to give you kind of the origins of
Yes!
how we came.
I want to hear, how did you come up with this?
Well, I mean, originally we just had this great idea of this kind of crime drama, action crime drama, kind of in the leagues of, somewhat of an action version of The Godfather, and pitting up against two mob organization. And I think we toyed around with possibly the Italians and the Russians or something like that. And then I think somewhere down the line, we realized that, we've seen movies like this all the time. And what would be interesting is if we put maybe the triads against the Yakuza. Let's make the rogue character a character of color, because I haven't seen that. We haven't seen that. Not really that much, especially to set up a crime drama. And that's kind of what we did. So and right away that just kind of popped, the Yakuza against the triads. And then Jet was the person we had in mind for the role, Jet Li, because we a while back had a script called Ticket to Ride over at Sony that he was attached to at an early. This is way back. There's probably, would you say, Lee, that it was like maybe
it was one of the first
7 years?
Yeah, it was one of the first
Before we did
projects
Rogue.
it was one of the first projects we ever set up when we came to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Funny story about that, because it's kind of how we got our start in the business, is that we came out here because we had a chance meeting with Jackie Chan.
Oh.
And we got to meet Jackie, and we talked to him about this idea that we had. And this is before Rumble in the Bronx came out and everything, right?
Okay.
And we talked to him about this idea we had. This would be a great introduction for you to be introduced to the American audience. And we pitched it to him. He really liked it. And he goes, okay, I tell you what, you write the script, send it to me when you're finished, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
So Greg and I, we run back home, we write up the script, we send it off to Hong Kong, thinking that, okay, here we go, the Hail Mary of all Hail Marys, right?
Oh yeah.
And about a month later, maybe not even quite a month later, I guess, his manager, Willie Chan, gives us a call and says, Jackie really likes the script.
Uh-huh.
He's going to go to New Line and tell them that this is the next film that he wants to do.
Right.
So it was literally like Beverly Hillbillies. We packed up all of our belongings.
How did you even meet him? Say that again.
It was in Chicago.
He was in Chicago.
Yeah, but how did you get a meeting with him? Not you. I mean, everyone wants to meet Jackie Chan. How do you get a meeting with Jackie Chan?
Well, we had.
We're kind of crafty.
Yeah, we were at a martial arts academy there called the Dagerberg Academy, and we got some info about where he was going to be that night when he came into town. So we kind of crashed the party.
Yeah,
we crashed the party.
and literally,
but not only did you crash the party, like I've crashed parties, but it's like then you get to meet the president,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Crash
well,
the
what
party.
was funny is we stuck around. We stuck around till almost the end of the night, and we were like one of the last people there. So we kind of were able to kind of get a sit down with him, just the two of us, and
the three of us.
Yeah, three of us.
I've never heard this story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, now, mind you, by the time we wrote the script and he was interested in it, by the time he moved to Hollywood to do Rumble in the Bronx, everything changed, because then by that time he got an agent, and then we were already in Los Angeles, so we basically were out in the cold. So we still had the script, so we started shopping it around, and we ended up giving it to I don't know if we got it to UTA, but UTA, and yes, we did get it to UTA, and then they ended up giving it to the way that our old agent told us. It was that somebody from Sony was looking for a script, an Asian action script to give to Jet Li, that was going to be directed by Choi Hawk, and he told us that Ticket to Ride, our script, was the first one on the pile, and he just gave it to him, and then they loved it, and then that was our first option.
Well, the way it went down,
I love how luck worked into that.
Well, the further the luck, right? Just like Greg said, it's like we came out to LA, we were like betting everything on this, and we found out through through his agent that, well, he's got other projects that we want him to do. He's not going to do this, so
Jet Li does.
Yeah, not Jet Li, but Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan. So we had a contact over at UTA, and we said, well, let's go talk to. It was Billy Rose at the time, so we went to talk to Billy Rose, and Billy Rose says, well, we have a young agent here. His name is Charlie, so we'll introduce you to Charlie. And we went in, we met with Charlie, and we gave him the script and said, listen, Jackie loves the script, but his agents don't want him to do it, so maybe you can help us out. And he goes, okay, put it on the desk, and we'll see what we can do. We leave, and from the story that we heard, that after we leave, about 20 minutes later, one of the other agents come running down to his office and comes in and goes, quick, I need an action film with an Asian lead. What have you got? And he goes, try that. And
oh my God, you guys made him look like a rock star.
Yeah. and again, Lee and I, we're big martial arts fans. I grew up on the Bruce Lee films, the Jackie, Jet, and all those guys. And the thing was that when we did get a meeting with over at Sony, and because they also had a deal with, I think this was under Van Damme's production company that we ended up meeting with.
Well, Signature. I don't know if Van Damme. I think Van Damme was doing all movies with Signature.
He was doing it. Yeah.
They did that Double Team. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it came out around the same time. So it was. Yes. So anyway, they asked us. It's like, look, we know you wrote the script for Jackie, but would you guys mind if Jet Li starred in it? And we had the worst poker face because it was just like, that's a win-win, it was just like, but of course, you got to play it off like, well, I guess he'll do. He
not the same, good. But
I don't know if he has the same comic timing, but if you guys think that it's Jet, sure, let's do it. And for the longest while, it was Jet with Choi Hawk directing, and and obviously Jet did not do the project. He ended up leaving the project, and Choi Hawk ended up leaving the project. Right. And then it kind of went in a turnaround. So we cut back to now finally getting Rogue, and as we're writing it, Jet Li was the guy that we wanted, and we got teamed up with a manager. And the manager had connections with Lionsgate, and then we had connection with Jet, so we ended up going to Steve Chasman,
right?
And he was the one that gave it to, and I guess that's probably how you end up getting it.
Yeah,
Jason. I think CAA was involved somehow.
I guess that was his agent at the time. CAA was
okay. You guys didn't. Yeah. It wasn't something that you guys were.
No, it wasn't in house or anything.
Yeah,
I mean, we weren't clients.
Okay, because the version, I actually kept all my emails going back then, and I went to look back, and when Chasman sent it to Jet, it was he had written it that CAA had highly recommended it.
Right, right.
And I think that was when he had just moved over to CAA.
Oh wow!
So that was. I think this was like the first project that CAA got him. So it was probably some version of of what you guys experienced at UTA. Imagine he had just signed with CAA, and his agent is probably like, "We need to get him something quick."
Yeah.
Well, I think
where is a script that we have that Asian lead?
well, let me ask you, Jason, because I think originally we had Jet, and then at somewhere down the line, I think we kind of lost him because, or we didn't lose him, but I think the idea was
think
that
they were
he was
negotiating.
asking. Well, yeah, because I think it was like well, Jet will do a project, but it has to be 10 million, meaning there was a certain price point on it.
Sure.
And I can't remember if it was Lionsgate or some company were like, well, I don't know, that might be 2 million to give him a lead, for him to star in a movie.
Right.
And somewhere down the line, I just remember that Chasman said, look, if we don't go, and maybe it might have been Lionsgate, but I think Chasman, we were told that said they love the script so much that they're going to do it with Jet, whether it's with Lionsgate or someplace else. And then we got the news back that Lionsgate was interested in meeting his quota, whatever the quota was.
Right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and at the time,
I did not know. I did not hear that part of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also at the time we were considering directors, and John Woo was being touted as the director at the time. And Greg and I were freaking out, going, "Well,
I mean, yeah,
because originally we wanted to direct it. Greg and I wanted to direct. We wanted to say,
I did not know this.
Yeah, yeah, we wanted to direct the film, but we were first timers, and it's our first script that we really sold to get made right away. I mean, we had some other projects in play. We had some other projects that were either optioned. We had another script that was actually bought over at Warner Brothers, but we said, well, we want to direct this one. And of course, everybody was against the fact that, we don't want any first-time directors. So when they said, well, John Woo is interested, we said, okay, all right, fine.
Wow.
If Woo's going to do it, then we backed off. And
obviously,
then,
he's not a first-time director.
Yes. But then
I never heard about that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Exactly.
I feel like we would have saved his career.
Oh,
yeah.
It would have been interesting. I can't imagine a Jet Li, Jason Statham, John Woo project. That would have been insane.
I feel like it's like, if you announce that now, take my money,
Yeah. And again, as we were writing it, and we already cast Jet as the road character, for the John Crawford character, we had Samuel L. Jackson in mind.
Yeah.
So Sam Jackson was the guy that we had, and at the end of the movie, in the script, the original script, there was not a face-off. There was a face-off, but it wasn't martial arts face-off. It was just they met at a beach, Crawford and Rogue, and then you see how it ends. But then we got Statham because Chasman wanted to put Statham in the film, and so he said, "What do you guys think?" Yeah. So what do you think about Statham? And he just had the Transporter films coming out and stuff. So my feeling was
I really liked Statham a lot. I thought Statham was awesome. Yeah,
I wanted
it's amazing, just really different.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wanted Sam, to be honest, because Sam having two leads of color in that movie just meant the world. And
he's not the Sam Jackson we know today, really.
Exactly. This was way before the whole Marvel and all that stuff.
I think pretty much we just know him from Pulp Fiction, basically, right?
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, he worked so much. He
worked so much, but like the iconic roles.
Exactly. So he's just this character actor, but he was still well known, and also the idea of him working with Jet was just appealing. At the same time, Jason was on the rise, so we knew that. Well, now this movie really will get a lot of attention, so it was fine with us. And now, the story that we will tell you is we had to sell Jason on it, though. So it wasn't enough that Jason was coming on board the project, but we had to sell him on it. Meaning, so we ended up meeting with Lionsgate. We ended up meeting with the director, and at that time we found out that Philip Atwell was the director, and first time, yes.
They told us they didn't want.
I hear you.
They said we don't want a first-time director, and they turned around and got.
Isn't that what they do all the time?
They do it all the time, but I like the idea that, hey guys, your opinion matters to us. It matters, and then it's like, okay, well, can we go with John Woo? Sure, we'll take a meeting with Will, yeah, we're getting with a first-time director, and this is the guy. So we had no
I
say
heard
in
what
that.
the story was with that was that Philip Atwell was attached to another project that Lionsgate was doing that
See?
wasn't that didn't get produced, but he was on a pay or play kind of a thing.
See?
And I guess they figured that, well, we got Corey going to do the second unit. Let's
Corey
just put
Yun.
this guy. Yeah, Corey Yun. So let's just put him on this project, and we'll save a lot of money doing that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was, if that was it or not, but it kind of seemed like that may have been part of it.
And so we're at Lionsgate with Chasman and Atwell.
Do you remember who the execs at Lionsgate were?
Mike and John. Is it John? John?
Mike and John.
Yeah,
it's been so long ago. We
Yeah,
didn't know their full name.
So they're not there anymore, basically.
I
Probably
think
not.
John might be still there.
John Saki. John Saki.
John Saki.
John Saki was one of them.
Yeah.
And then there was another producer. But anyway, so we're just kind of having the conversation, and in our contract.
Well, they remember they called us over and they said, we want you to meet, and this is the setup now. They go, we want you to meet with Jason over at the restaurant. It's now Wahlberg's over on Sunset. It was something else before. It was like an Italian restaurant before the Wahlbergs took it over. And it was on Sunset, and they said, we want you to be with the producer. The producers called us and said, we want you to meet with Jason and Atwell to talk to him about the project, but we don't want you to really say anything unless you're spoken to.
Well, no, but here's the thing. Lee. That was the Lionsgate meeting, because at that meeting we then had to go over to the restaurant. And
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So
Jason will meet us there, right?
Yeah, but they told us in the room about that. So I mean, it wasn't even over the phone. We're at Lionsgate. They're telling us pretty much, okay, we got to sell Jason. So Philip is going to do all the talking, and Chasman's going to probably do some talking. You guys don't say a damn thing. Show up. So we can introduce you, the writers, but then show up. So anyway, on Sunset, we go to this. The
instructions. These instructions were given to you by who again? Lionsgate.
It was Lionsgate and Chasman.
Oh, yes. All of them.
All of them. Pretty much everybody.
It's like be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Just go.
You're the writers.
Yeah.
Know your place.
Right.
So anyway, we go to this, and again, it's a kind of famous Hollywood. It's almost like it's seen out of Entourage.
Right.
But it's a famous restaurant on Sunset that we go to. But it just so happened Lee and I were the first ones at the restaurant, and there's nobody in the restaurant. So we go in, and we're like, okay, I guess we'll just wait for the guys to follow. But who shows up? But Statham. So Statham is the first guy that shows up, and
so we sit and have a beer with Statham. We get to know him. He's a really nice guy.
He just got off.
We're kind of bonding with him and everything.
Wasn't that the day that he got off of Crank? Because
he just got through shooting the helicopter scene in Crank, where he was like hanging out the helicopter over L.A.
Yeah,
and he was telling us all about that day that he had, and we were having a great time.
We're having a great time
about it.
And again, we didn't mention anything, but we're sitting there and having this great time and drinking beer, and we got a table, and we see the producer and director see us sitting there with Statham, and you could see their eyes like, holy shit. What the fuck? So anyway, so they're explaining the character to him, and they're explaining the plot to him. And there's a sticking point that Statham isn't getting from the director about his character, like his motivation and stuff like that. And I think at that time, Tony and I, our dish came, and we just started eating, and we're listening to this.
Spaghetti.
We're eating spaghetti. And Philip is struggling. He is literally struggling. And at one point, Chasman is trying to explain it to him. And Statham like, hey, I want to hear from him. I want to hear from him, And so he's going at it. He's drowning, okay? Now, and then at some point, Lee and I just said, okay, this is the character's motivation. And we just pretty much explained who John Crawford is and his motivation and the reason why he did what he did. And then what Jason came, because now, mind you, now this is spoilers who haven't seen War, so this is your opportunity.
We've given you 14 years if you haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen it, yeah. But John Crawford and Rogue were partners, and he portrays them. And so it's all about the portrayal. Why did he portray him? What was the motivation for that? And we explained it to him. And if you ever remember the scene where John is going to meet up with Rogue, but he wasn't called Rogue at the time. It was John.
It was Tom.
It was Tom.
Tom Lone, yeah.
Tom Lone. He was going to meet up for football and steaks, but he had to stop off at the store to get the steaks. You think that he would have just gotten the fact that, okay, I'm in debt. I gave him a name. I turned on my partner, but then Statham got it. But he got it by saying, if I only didn't pick up the steaks, I could have been there to save my partner. And Lee and I just looked at each other and were like, sure, absolutely. You're right. If you just didn't, and the one frustrating thing about.
But what was it? He's just a corrupt cop, right?
He's a corrupt cop.
Yeah,
when you're young, you do things.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Right?
Well,
that was the explanation that I understood.
Yeah, the idea when we wrote it, we thought, wouldn't it be interesting if Dirty Harry, if you're following Dirty Harry throughout the whole movie, right? And he's just kicking ass and he's like brutalizing these people and but he's doing it because it's an altruistic motive, right? And you're thinking, oh, he's the good guy. It doesn't matter what he does because, he's going to get the bad guy. And so, yeah, but what if you got to the very end and you realize that Dirty Harry was really the bad guy?
Right. And that the bad guy that he's chasing, the assassin, was actually the good guy.
Yeah.
So we just flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I think Lionsgate never got over was Jason, because now that Jason's starring in it, for him to be totally, totally bad. Because we had a scene, there was a scene in The Plastic Surgeon that was in the original script where he, and you know this because you read it, where Crawford shoots the plastic surgeon that can identify who has identified who Rogue was. And once that Crawford saw that it was his old partner, he wanted to cover up the loose end, so he kills the plastic surgeon and he kills another character that works for him called Benny. He killed him and light the place on fire. That was the first thing that got taken out of the script.
Because they wanted two heroes. They wanted Jason to be heroic as well.
Yeah.
And we tried to explain and say, well, no, it was, it would have been one of those twists. And it's funny because they left the twist in there, but it's interesting how you can change just slight things and it's a domino effect, right?
Oh yeah.
You can change just the slightest things and suddenly it just all kind of unravels. And because they did that, I felt that, well, now because you've done that and you're trying to make him still a heroic character, it just never worked. It didn't work and it ruined the ending, really.
Yeah, I think they felt like, well, we'll hold it off to the end. But our reveal was in the third act, and the third act we were showing you who he was, and that our feeling was much more impactful. But you have Hero actually having to say, "Oh, it was Crawford. It was Crawford. That was it." But our feeling was, but you never really saw it, and what we had in the original script, you saw it. So they went with the ending that they ended up going with, and that's all.
I'll give you some thoughts there. I just checked. I don't think John is at Lionsgate anymore. It looks like he's at his own production company. And then I'm not sure if the other execs, I don't think any of them are there.
Probably not.
But I'll give you my recollection of it. So when I read the script, keep in mind this is like, this is 15 years ago. Right. And this is really it was really early on. We might have even gotten it like late 2005 or something like that.
Oh no, we did the deal. We actually closed the deal in November of
2005.
2005. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason it went so quick was because that's when Jet had that window, and so everything sped up really fast. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sure Statham is busy too. But I remember getting it and being really excited about it because I was like, oh, the twists, the ending, all of that, and the action sequences. And I just felt also I think I remember I felt also more excited about where it was going, the story. I felt the original script was good and solid, but then it was the ending, and you guys had written 2 pages of where if this movie worked, where it would go.
Right.
I was like, that is actually what got me so excited because I was like, oh, well, that's really amazing because then you get to see great story that has really a lot of cultural resonance, but it has like the action and all that stuff that you want for fan service. And then you have Jet Li kind of in this great role where there's like action and drama and romance and all this kind of stuff. Like it's very epic feeling.
Yeah, we had a whole mythology and of that culture of the the Asian, the Yakuza, the war between the triads and the Yakuza, to a point where
so my question for you guys on that is, because you guys are obviously fans, but when you're writing it, how in your writing process, like what do you do to get into or better understand those characters and culture?
We did a lot of research, and because we were also into martial arts, we knew some guys that were kind of in that arena, if you will.
Okay.
And so yeah, they would tell us stories of things that would happen.
You guys both
things.
were into martial arts? Like you guys both practiced? Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So because we were huge fans, like Greg said, we were huge fans of the Hong Kong films way back in the 80s. Well, of course we watched Jackie Chan even before that, but we were watching films from Jackie and Jet. I mean, Once Upon a Time in China was like mind blown. I remember when we would go to the Art Institute in Chicago, and they would run these Hong Kong films, Ringo Lam, John Woo films, all these films would come there. And we were just sat there all day long watching these Hong Kong films. And we were greatly influenced by them because we felt like they were doing something that American action films were not doing. And that is that they had this amazing action, but they also had great stories. If you took away the action, you'd still have an amazing story, like The Killer. The Killer is just a great story, even if you didn't have all the amazing action in it. So they
didn't rely on the special effects.
Yeah, they didn't rely on that.
It was practical.
Yeah,
most of it.
Yeah, and that's where we were coming from. We said, no, let's make an epic Godfather, Scarface kind of a movie, a big epic scale with this. And I think the one thing that we decided to, when we decided to make it, a Yakuza and Triad story, is that, oh my God, it's so rich in culture and everything. We can just open it up, and we had these amazing sunsets and temples and really delve deep into the whole mystique of that, right? And of course, it got thrown out the window.
So what I will say, continuing in my recollection, was that I remember being so excited about it, and then Jet signed on, did his deal, and I remember when we got into it, I really push whoever was making the decision over at Lionsgate. I want to say it was like every time we got an update, it was like, oh no. And now hearing your side of it all these years later, it makes so much sense because of like what the vision that you guys had in mind, and the instinct that you had from casting and the story, the character. Like you're right. When you have two heroes and you make them equal, it's like what you were kind of saying. I think you were getting to, like, it's a compromise, and that's what I felt happened. Like every time we got news from Lionsgate about the direction of the project, it was like a compromise. It was like,
well, it's funny because look, Jet was the star. I mean, that was the Rogue. It's called Rogue for a reason. He's the star, and Crawford is the supporting player, but he is the star. Now, one of the things that I remember Jason said at when we were having lunch with him was, hey, no matter what, I don't want to fight Jet. Jet's he's just badass, so I don't want to have to fight him. And we agreed.
We're in agreement with that because we never wrote a fight scene.
We never wrote a fight scene. Yeah, it was meant to be more of a portrayal and character
drama,
and we wanted to play the drama aspect. And a week later, we get the call from Lionsgate saying there's going to be a fight scene between Jet and Jason, and we're just like, what the hell? And we fought
against that because.
Well, do you? I have to tell you the story. All right, you go first. You fought because
we fought.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, we fought against it because the relationship of those, and that's one of the things that we really wanted to bring home is that imagine this. Imagine you had Sonny Crockett and Ricardo Tubbs as partners on Miami Vice, and at the very end, you find out one of them betrays the other. You know, and we felt that, well, if they fight, it's not about that. It's about the betrayal. It's about they're brothers practically. They're best of friends. They've been watching each other's back all this time. And the one thing that we wanted to also establish as well is the Crawford character is he's devastated by it. The fact that he's responsible for the death of Tom and his family. He is in fact, that is his driving force. He is, through the whole movie, he is trying to exorcise these demons that inside him that he caused
by trying to kill Rogue.
But he can't do it. And no matter how much he searches, and he thinks that if he can kill Rogue, then he'll exorcise those demons. He'll get rid of that. But when he gets to him, lo and behold, who Rogue is.
Right.
But
and also the problem too was that online, when they found out Jason was going to be in the film, then it became, it's the one versus the transporter. That the audience started to build up that they're going to fight each other, and apparently Lionsgate knew that.
So I will say that is why it is very dangerous to just do fan service.
Yes,
because the fans aren't the ones writing it.
Yeah,
and they're reactionary too. So whether it's as a writer or director, as a producer, like, we have to be the ones that curate, that know the vision.
I concur.
And even if people don't see the vision, I'll tell you the story that I have about that fight you said. So you guys were only on set for like parts of it. You guys were not on set the whole time, right?
No, we were on set for like 4 weeks, I think, altogether.
We were there when they were trying to choreograph the fight scene.
Do you remember how hard that was?
Yes.
Do you remember? Was that at the end?
Mm-hmm.
That was towards the end. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say I have a memory of one of the days, because it was like a rough production, because like the action sequences, because I remember these like very Corey and Jet, they would argue with the producers, and the producers always leaned on the studio, saying that that's what the studio wanted. But Corey and Jet would say, no, this doesn't make sense. And that day where they had to shoot that fight between Jet and Jason, they were like, this story-wise just doesn't make sense. Like, we don't know what to do, because Jet and Corey, like, even though they're known for action, their action is different. And why is Jet Li so amazing? Because his action tells story and character.
Yeah. It's a story in itself, right? Yeah.
Not a lot of people do that or understand that's a part of the thing.
Yeah.
And so when they were saying like, they were saying that day, because I was there and listening, it's like, they're like, we don't understand why they're fighting. Like, we can't choreograph a fight that we don't understand where the story would go. And so it was very frustrating for them to have to shoot that fight sequence.
Well, it's funny because when we were told that we had to put in a fight scene, we were like, okay. And one of my favorite fight scenes is Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris in Return of the Dragon, where Chuck has 1 minute to do whatever damage he does, and Bruce has the rest of the 7 minutes where he dismantles. And Lee and I wrote that. We said because our feeling was, okay.
Well, we in the rewrite, when they came back to us and say, well, you got to change this. We fought against it, but said, okay, if we do it, then we can do it this way.
Yeah, and this is how we would do it, which is that for character, it would be Crawford that would just be initiating as many blows that he can on Rogue, begin trying to exercise his own demons he's projecting and trying to take him out. And at the same time, we're letting Rogue almost kind of allowing this to happen. And then when Rogue finally has enough and he tears him down, he breaks him down throughout the fight scene, where he eventually just devastates Crawford, because there was no way Crawford would be able to hang with Rogue. And that eventually was thrown out because, again, that would have made Jason look weaker. And the problem was that they were trying to make Jason equal as Jet, particularly in the fighting, which made no sense. And so
especially when Rogue is supposed to be this amazing assassin.
Yeah, that was the amazing thing. I was like, I was like, I want to see movies 2 and 3, because that's when you get into that. Like, you only teasing it in the first one, but you established that.
And also
Yeah.
And also being on the set, it didn't help matters where Philip, the director, came in and tried to tell Corey Yun, who knows about choreography, who knows about fighting, how to do his job. I mean, to a way.
I mean, I think that's really tough because as a director and a first-time director,
exactly.
you want to show that you've got this, right?
Yeah.
I think that's from like a certain perspective. But of course, thinking it from another perspective, if you just open up yourself to the best idea, at the end of the day, no one thinks that Corey Yuen directed that movie, right? People will only know that Philip directed that movie.
Exactly.
So if he only opened up himself to accept that idea, he would have gotten all the credit.
Absolutely.
Well, unfortunately, with Philip, I mean, Greg and I remember we tried several times to just have conversations with him.
Yeah.
And you know, with this project, War, it was the best of times and the worst of times, right?
At the same time.
I feel the same way. Like, I think about this movie quite a lot because I was like, it's what could have been, but never was. Right?
Yeah. And I remember we were sitting there, and I remember we were talking to Philip, and we were trying to explain to him, say, listen, Philip, we're trying to help you because this is our first time too, and this is your first time. We got to get this right.
Yeah.
Right. And if we do get it right, wow, you know, the future is ours, but we really have to. And we were just kind of dismissed, you know, on every time we try to approach him and try to explain to him on certain story beats and things. And to the point where they actually brought other writers in at a certain point and
is
did
that what
rewrites
happened?
and stuff. Yeah, they brought other writers in.
So I wanted to ask you about that because I not privy to all of this, obviously. Yeah. But one day, you know, like I was telling you, like the updates of the studio, like every time we get an update, we're like, it was they were like, we think the script is good, but it needs more. Like I think they were saying like character or something like that. And so at the point it was like I remember this is very clearly.
Which was bad exposition, by the way. That was what they were talking. They were saying we want more character, but they put on all this really awful exposition.
Poor dialogue. And I remember they were like, "Oh, it's Stuart Beatty," because I think it's because he had just come off winning an Oscar or being nominated for an Oscar. I think
he did Pirates. He did Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got to speak to Stuart actually after the fact. He called and he talked about having to do those rewrites. And he was really a sweet guy, really a nice guy. And he actually said, when I read the script, I couldn't understand why they wanted me to change it. And I thought that was one of the best compliments another writer can give you, you know, when
I heard that news. So, I mean, this is just me, by the way, not what I didn't ask Jet about any of this. Right. And, but just for me and just being in the industry and being at that time, I was super young. I was only like 2 years into working with Jet.
Like you were a baby. You were a baby.
Yeah. But even for me, like just being a fan, I was like, I was like, I mean, they're bringing on this guy because they want like a stamp of his Oscar worthiness. You know how great of a award-winning writer he is. But I was like looking at his past work. I was like, this guy is not steeped in this lore.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
The story you guys wrote had a specific lore to it and an appreciation of a certain style of films and story.
And you know, that's an excellent thing.
And nothing against him, like you said. No. He gave you guys the greatest.
Well, I'm sure he was taking notes. I'm sure they gave him a ton of notes, and he had to follow those notes to the letter. Probably.
Exactly.
But that's an excellent thing you just said, Jason. Is there was a lore to it, and growing up on Chinese cinema, that we wanted to capture that, but for an American audience.
Yeah.
And if you're not accustomed of those films, you know, if you're not accustomed to how they did things in China and how they express, Hard Boiled was like one of my favorite of how you can still have action and still have character. Yeah. But yet it always felt bigger than what it was. If you're not accustomed to that, you're going to make another Cradle to the Grave, you know. You're going to make it, and that's why a lot of times where people like Jet and Chow Yun-fat and John Woo are coming over, their American films are never as good as their their original, the films they've done in China and stuff, because they don't understand the mythology of the lore and the history of Chinese culture. And that was the thing that we were constantly fighting the studios on, and trying to understand that, maybe you might want to do a Departed, but we want to do an Infernal's Affairs.
Yeah.
And that was the frustrating thing about it.
Yeah. And I remember there was we honest, with some of the best memories I ever have right now is hanging out with Jet on the set for that film. Yeah, and you and
Corey.
And Corey. Corey was wonderful. Corey was amazing. Yeah.
I wish he would have directed the film.
Yeah. But I remember
that would have been interesting, right?
We weren't going to direct it, and John Woo wasn't going to direct it. Corey
would have been the guy. Yeah.
Obviously he's a great director. So
yeah. But I remember, we were sitting there, and Jet is sitting there, and he would tell the best jokes. By the way, he would tell these dirty jokes all the time.
Yeah.
But I remember he was sitting there, and he made a comment about the film, and he said that he goes, you guys, because we were talking to him about the character and stuff like that. And he goes, and he made a comment. He looked over at us one day, and he goes, "How come you guys didn't direct this movie?" And we go, "Well, Jet, we wanted to, but they said they didn't want a first-time director." And he looked over at Philip, and he goes, "What is he?"
Politics.
I mean, there's just so many. It's like, because this film also encapsulates, I think, right now we're having this moment with representation and Hollywood responding to whether it's Black Lives Matter, or even more recently this year, it's this whole Asian hate and all the crimes. And earlier it was like the Muslim ban, and then there's indigenous rights. And it's really interesting to me because I see Hollywood, when it's convenient, they like to cheer and say they're all for this. But when I this film right here, all the stories that we've been discussing is a perfect encapsulation of day to day what actually needs to happen.
You gotta have people
make that change.
You gotta have people in the room. You gotta have people.
But also what you said, Greg, about you guys writing this type of film and having loved the films and really done the work, and not only just saying you love the film like Quentin Tarantino says he loves the film, but then he has this portrayal of Bruce Lee that is horrific. You have to appreciate it in that way that you're talking about, in that you appreciate the very fundamentals of it, and you're just going to kind of bring the best of both worlds together instead of trying to squish a Asian looking character onto into something that it's not, right?
Well, I mean, look, for me, the person that got me into films, to want to be an actor and director and even a filmmaker, was Bruce Lee. I grew up idolizing Bruce Lee on everything from when he was Kato on the Green Hornet to all the 4.5 films that he's done. But I could also see the relationship of how he projected himself with all types, blacks, whites, Italian, in that movie theater. And you sit there and you realize there's a craving to hear other ethnic stories, and that he could be a hero. And for this little black kid that could look up and see someone like this Asian hero, who also was his fighting style was also so beautiful, and it very different aspects of other fighting arts, but particularly the fact that he was able to take one of his favorite idols was Muhammad Ali, and incorporate that in his fighting, so that he had rhythm. It was so identifiable to even black people that you go, he could be an honorary brother. That's the stuff that, and I think that was the stuff that Lee and I, when we got together and decided to write characters, is to say, look, we need to write characters that we don't see. We need to write representation in a way, and I don't necessarily know that at the time we were saying, representation, but
No,
what we were saying
we just wanted to see fresh stories.
Fresh stories, and because we were such a fan of Chinese cinema and stuff. I mean, at that time, we also wrote another script called Psychic, where it was a horror film where the lead character was black, because we haven't seen a black protagonist in a horror film like that. And we had, at one point, we had Cuba Gooding Jr. That was another script that got optioned several times, and even sold
He
at
got
one
bought,
point.
turned around.
Yeah, that we did when we had Rogue.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
or Rogue came a little later. So
Right.
for us, it's important that not only to have representation in front of the camera, you got to have it behind closed doors. You got to have it in the writing rooms. You got to have producers there that are also, or showrunners that are also people of color.
The executives, right?
Yeah.
You have to.
You know?
You have
I
to,
remember-
because I'll just finish
Okay.
this one thought. Because if you don't, and even if your characters are a person of color, you're going to have the same thing happen that happened to War, where they're putting the white other protagonist, who was really an antagonist, making him a protagonist and making him kind of share the screen with Jet. And I remember this one moment when I first saw Into the Dragon. And I was so excited. It was like, finally, I get a chance, because out of all Bruce Lee's films, Enter the Dragon was the last one, but that was the American one. And so I see Enter the Dragon, and when his name popped up, I'm like, yeah. But I was so, and I was a kid. I kept saying, why is John Saxon sharing the bill with Bruce Lee? Why not Bruce Lee, then John Saxon? He has his own card. And it was told to me, well, he's Asian, and he's the first time Asian lead.
Yeah.
You got to put a white guy there, and it always bugged me. I'm like, but he's the star. He's the star, and we were always hoping to, in our own small way, maybe change that.
Yeah.
Well, I just know that when we were in one of the mini meetings that about the script, I remember one of the producers, one of the executives, looked over at us and says, "What do you guys think about the ending?" Greg and I went, "Well, we think the ending's pretty good. I mean, we wrote it, right?" And he goes, "Well, we think Jason should live."
Yeah.
And then we go, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, we like sequels." And we go, "We wrote it as a trilogy.
Yeah.
It's written as a trilogy."
Yes.
But in his mind, he couldn't see us doing another
Yeah.
movie without Jason. And we're going, it's Jet's
Jet's
film.
story.
It's Jet's story. The whole trilogy is Jet's story. It's going to continue. His story will continue. Jason is done. He's over. That character is he served his
Or if
purpose
you
in
really
this film.
wanted to, you just do a different lane with him, right? If you loved him so much, you could do like a different lane.
Well,
but it doesn't work if you compromise.
I mean, here's the irony: is we even came up with an idea of doing a prequel, because we always felt that the Rogue character, and even with the John Crawford story, we could do a prequel, but that was like, but it should not infringe
Exactly.
on the Rogue character. He's your lead.
Right. If you don't set up the foundation, you can't have everything else.
Yeah. And it was meant to be a trilogy, and it was going to be, this. It would have been amazing. One day I want to go back and remake War
the right way.
Do the right way and do the trilogy, because there's still a great story there.
I think you were with us, Jason, but you remember what Jet told us when we told him the trilogy, how this was going to be a trilogy. And Jet told us, he says, "Yeah, but you got to get this one right first."
Yeah.
And he was right, and we
Yeah.
didn't get it right. So
Yeah. I mean, and then
we got it right, but
that is what I'm saying, and that's why Jet also initially signed on with such passion, because he could see it becoming something. Because imagine this is really at the height of his Hollywood fame, because it was coming out. They're so I mean, of course, we all know Lethal Weapon and The One and Romeo Must Die, but he had just released also Hero and Fearless right at this time.
Well, here's a little tidbit that you brought up, and I know Lee was probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
We kind of helped get him the Lethal Weapon role, because we were called. Yeah, because we were called in to Lethal Weapons, to Warner Brothers, to talk about doing another Lethal Weapon movie. And one of the things that
and in fact, our pitch was another Lethal Weapon.
It was another Lethal Weapon. And one of the things that we told them is we said, well, the problem is that the last movie, you didn't have anybody close to even matching Riggs. You got to have somebody better than Riggs. And they're like, so who do you have in mind? They said, there's this guy named Jet Li. And they're like, and they said, Jet who? And Jet Li. And
we go, well, he's attached to our film, Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride, yeah.
We got a film over at Sony that he's attached to, and he would be perfect for this, to play the bad guy.
And we listed all the movies that Jet Li did, and they were writing that down. And then it was like a couple months later, I looked at the trade, and I said, oh, Lethal Weapons moving forward.
We didn't get the job, but
Jet did. Yeah.
It all comes back, and then this worked out.
Yeah.
And so funny.
And I'll say
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, and I'll say this one thing, because this is how it really comes back around. Because when we finally got on the set, because they were already started and without us, and then eventually we did get to the set. And when we first met,
we hadn't actually met Jet yet.
Even
though he was attached to the other project, we hadn't actually physically met him.
Yeah. And when he saw us, because the producers introduced him as us as the writers, and then he was like, "Are you the rewrite writers or the original writers?" And we looked at each other like, "We're the original." And then the smile came over his face, like, "Hey, you guys!"
I hate to wonder what would have happened if we just said we were the rewrite.
He probably just walked away and stuff. And then that's when we brought up Ticket to Ride, and he's like, "Yes, I remember that script."
Oh, that is like a very fuzzy, because I wasn't around. That was before I started working for him.
Yeah.
So the Ticket to Ride, I remember that project, but like by the time I joined, it was kind of not going anywhere or something like that.
Yeah, he left the project actually.
Yeah.
He left the project.
I remember hearing about it,
that.
but nothing. Oh, that's so fascinating. That's, I mean, and recently I've been studying much more because, Greg, unlike you, when I was growing up, I didn't really think Bruce Lee was all that awesome. And I'll tell you why. Of course, he's awesome in terms of his prowess, but I felt he was a god. So I was like, I don't feel connected to him. And I will probably say, although I'm not aware of this, I think there is probably a bit of the fact that, as an Asian American man, when I travel the world, like when people want to make fun of me, they call me Bruce Lee, right?
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And that's
I wish somebody make fun of me and call me Bruce Lee.
No, but they're doing that with like the sounds and like the actions, and so that's like them kind of like showing them being not so polite. Or I don't know what it is, but it's not just me. Like it's not just like you ask most Asian men that travel the world. Like if you go somewhere that doesn't speak your language, people, that's how they talk to you. And so it's almost like a form of like, I don't know. It's like but it's very insidious because it's like taking someone who should be your hero, like a Muhammad Ali, but then making fun of you for that, right?
Yeah.
And so there are very reasons. But recently, I this is a couple years ago now, like I want to say 4 years ago, I read his biography. And I think, have you guys ever read, there's a Matthew Polly biography that he did, really well done. And what I thought was so well done is he humanized Bruce. Like Bruce is this amazing person who came from a very difficult, like upbringing, childhood, like overcame so much, but at the same time, he should have been even much more. And and then the most interesting thing to me is like every struggle that Bruce Lee had back in his day, we're still dealing with that today. And
it's crazy.
And even before Bruce, we were having the same struggles. And even now, it's like the same. It's like the same thing. I don't know. I don't feel like that much has changed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No. That it's funny that you brought that up too, because I think the reason why I was such a big fan, outside of just the incredible martial arts that he did and the charisma that he had, was his story. I read that biography. I read so much on him. It was his journey that I really identified with. Again, because Asian, and blacks are still considered minorities when you're non-white.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that he had to go through the struggles in Hollywood, the fact that he was
Well, even
like,
in his homeland, they thought he was like too American.
Too American.
he was too American there and stuff like that. So he couldn't even win there. And then he comes and he does the Cato, and then technically treated more or less he was the manservant.
Yeah.
You know, so he was falling into those stereotypes. And then when he develops the Warriors, which eventually turned out to be Kung Fu, and then cast a white guy, which was always confusing to everybody because I kept saying,
even as a kid, I'm going,
he's like, he's not,
why do they keep on calling him Chinaman? I don't understand.
Yeah,
you know,
he's not Chinese. Why are they doing this?
He doesn't look Chinese at all.
But you're so right, Jason, because I can use that even with the Black experience. As much as we've evolved, you find out we really haven't evolved that much or have made that much movement. We just had a horrific year in 2020, and all those protests, the Black Lives Matter, all that stuff. It's like I was fortunate enough to be able to march in the Black Lives Matter movement over the summer, and it was empowering at the same time, a little bit heartbreaking that we have to do this again. This was the stuff that our parents or grandparents had to go through, and yet we're still going through it. Black men still getting shot by cops. We're still going through this, even after the trial that just ended. You know, that the fact that there was more cops violence. So yeah, it's always a struggle for people of color to try to be beyond. You want people to see you more than just the color on your skin.
Right. And I think that's that's what I see in your stories, in your scripts. And I mean, what you said about the script that you wrote for Rogue and the mission that you set out for, that's like, and how you guys said it perfectly at the top, where you guys were trying to add a different, you were trying to bring that style of Hong Kong and Chinese filmmaking in that tradition, but just apply it for audiences here. And I say that a lot because that's what I'm trying to do. So I haven't seen you guys in a while, but for the last 3 years, I was at Alibaba Pictures based here in LA. And about a year and a half ago, I left to start my own company. And why I did not just join a studio, like, believe me, I would have loved to join any studio because I know the power that you can have. But it's because of all these experiences. I know if I were to join one, I couldn't make movies where I just work on, like, all my movies, like the slate that I'm developing. My requirement is that they all have one Asian lead. But to me, to you, or to a lot of people, it might sound radical or weird, or like, are you making the farewell?
No.
And I'm like, no. I'm just making like, I want to make the version of Rogue that we wanted to make. I want to make, you know, kind of like what they did with Crazy Rich Asians. They just took that's formulaic. Like, we know that's a rom-com. We've seen, there's like, if I took a poster and did comps, there's like 100 of those movies. And the reason why that movie did well, and the reason why that was so like a breath of fresh air, is because you've never seen that movie from that perspective.
Yes. And
that's what I'm trying to do. Like, movies that I see recently that I think are amazing are like Searching, right? Or Hustlers, right? You've never seen that movie of Hustlers, like that Godfather style movie with women of color, right? Or of women in general. Or like, you know, people make fun of the Meg, right? Like the Meg, and the Meg, you know, you could say what it was, but it was fun.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, you should definitely at least just watch it. The one thing you will see about the Meg, and this is something that friends here pointed out to me, non-Asian friends. They pointed out to me that Li Bingbing's character, she plays the female protagonist with Jason Statham. They remarked that was one of the few times that they've seen a female lead character not have to rely on the man. Like, so if you watch that character, she doesn't, her agency does not come from Jason Statham.
Right.
She's totally independent.
Now I want to watch it.
She can do her own thing. There are other issues with the film, but if you just watch the film, kind of like the expectations you have for Kong versus Godzilla, I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, I think that was one of the big things that we got constantly with, especially when we first arrived on the set, is a lot of people said they were surprised when they saw, this white guy and this black guy wrote this almost complete Asian cast kind of a film. And they go, how did you guys do this? And we're like going, we just wrote people, we wrote these characters like we'd write anybody, that they just fit this part and they fit this role. I don't understand the whole thing with, I remember we set up Psychic, Greg. Remember when we set up Psychic and they read the script and go, well, we never really saw this as a black character when we read it. It didn't read like a black character. And we're going, how does a black character read?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it just seems foolish, that we live in a time now where, everybody's looking for these tropes. You can't write the character unless you have these
check
tropes.
a certain box to make themselves feel good, but not actually do the work.
And what we find that we have to do is we have to put the ethnicity, the ethnic race of the character in the script, because if we do not, they're going to make it assume it's white all the time.
And that's why, for me, for my company, I have to say that my requirement is to have one Asian lead. Though I'm like, I wish I didn't have to say that.
Well, I mean, I remember we were at Def Pictures, and Def Pictures, Russell Simmons' company at the time, predominantly a black company. Yeah. They even threw out the fact of does he have to be black? Meaning, if Tom Cruise wanted to do it, can he be able to do it for Psychic? And we said. He said, but isn't this defeating the purpose of why this story would make it more interesting? Because again, we don't see a black protagonist in a horror film that doesn't get killed off in the first 5 minutes. It's like he's the lead. It's his story. It's his drama.
That's the fresh perspective.
But
that's why for me, Searching was amazing. I mean, Searching was amazing for other reasons.
Yeah.
But it was another element.
It's taking genre and casting people of color in genre that they normally would never get the opportunity to be in. Yeah. And I think that's also the reason why I think Lee and I really kind of broke away from the Hollywood system and just said, let's form kind of our own little company ourselves, and said, look, it's going to take longer, but let's create material we want to see. And if we have to finance it, we'll finance it. But at least we don't have to answer to anybody outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And because I think that experience with, like I said before, it was the best of times and it was the worst of the times. It was kind of soul crushing. It really was to see how, because we put so much work into that script and we had such.
I think for all of us, I would say for me, I was just Jet's assistant, but it was soul crushing for me because
for Jet.
It was for sure. I mean, I have so many more stories. Like for Jet, like I would go with him to these meetings right around Hollywood, and this was such a mind fuck for me because for me, so to give you a little perspective, when I started working for Jet, I didn't really appreciate who he was because I just knew him. I actually really found out about him when Romeo Must Die was out here.
Oh, okay.
Because I grew up more watching Jackie Chan and Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat. I actually did not know about Jet Li. And I kind of knew about him, but I didn't know that much about him. And then so I found out about him. And then when I was going to go interview for this role to be his assistant, that's when I really did my research. And I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. And that's how I learned. And then so I would go, and I did a deep dive, like to all his background, his lore, right? Come from the age of 8. He became his background in China and being the wushu champion, and it's kind of crazy origin story. But when I would go around to Hollywood with him, like exactly like how you guys described it, how the Warner Brothers executives didn't even know who he was. Like, I think in Hollywood, like, it was clear to me in the meetings that we went to, like the execs really didn't know who he was, and they were just kind of playing lip service to talk to him about these roles. But it was so crazy to me because at that time he would have, like, if you put him with a good story, like what you were saying, like with the movies he was making in Hong Kong, if you put him in a good story here and just let him be, like, we would have some like
he'll crush it,
like cinematic history, right?
Like,
I remember sitting on the set with him, and he was talking about doing Hero, and Hero. I think we loved Hero better than Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It was just
Yeah.
such a beautiful,
Yeah.
wonderful movie. And to be on the set with Jet Li talking about Hero and working with
Corey?
Zhang Yimou?
not what's that?
Zhang
Corey?
Yimou, the director?
Not the director, but it was I'm sorry, but it's the guy who played Yip Man.
Donnie Yen.
Donnie Yen, thank you.
Yeah.
I
They
just
had that
blanked
epic
out.
fight.
Yeah, but they had that epic fight, and they were fighting
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I was
Yeah.
it was like I could have pinched myself. I couldn't believe I was dreaming. But
Yeah.
one of my favorite films, not just China films, one of my favorite films, Hero. I'm sitting next to the star, talking to him about working with Donnie Yen while he's on the set of
Your
our
movie.
film. Yeah, it was just a surreal moment. And
Yeah.
I mean, it is an experience that you kind of take with you, and it can scar you, and you can be jaded by the whole industry. But at the same time, we still want to create stories, and that's still a battle of people in color in prominent positions, and that it's worth fighting for.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about what you guys have been up to for the last few years. Tell me about Noir.
Well, we kind of started doing documentaries. We wanted to start.
Oh, wait, I remember that. You guys
yeah.
sent me a few links. I saw a couple of those.
Yeah, we wanted to, we wanted to get more into the creating as far as directing and things like that. And we figured if the Hollywood's not going to give us a shot, we'll just start doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we had a project a couple of years later that came real close to going through, but our financing fell through last minute. But then we turned and said, okay, let's do a couple of documentaries. So we've worked on a couple of documentaries. We did one documentary on Albert S. Ruddy, the producer of The Godfather. Yeah. And that was a great experience. And just hanging out with him and hearing his stories was pretty amazing, and when you see how Hollywood works a lot of times, and you see that if you've produced The Godfather and you still have problems trying to get your next movie produced, that kind of puts everything in perspective, right?
Yep.
So we worked on that. We worked on some other stuff, and we continue writing all the time. But our big thing now is the last few years we've worked on a project called Noir that we financed and pretty much are producing ourselves. And it's just like the name sounds. It's like an old 1940s black and white. We were big fans of the Universal Monster movies back in the 30s and 40s, and as well as the Out of the Past and
the
film noir films of the 40s. So we combined those two genres, the horror genre and the hard-boiled detective story, and we combined those to create this movie called Noir, which is it's pretty cool supernatural thriller. I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised with it once it's done.
Cool.
Yeah, we pretty much cast it full of white people, because they need to be represented too. So it was important to make sure that they get their say.
Yeah,
but
you hardly see those stories.
Yeah. But no, it is a labor of love, because these were films that I know Lee have grown up with, and I definitely have grown up with a lot of the black and white, the film noirs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's so we've been working on that and putting that together. We're also working on a pilot script that we're pretty close to finishing. I'm not going to say they're based off of us in Hollywood, but loosely based off of us.
When you mentioned your stories earlier on, I was like, you should be writing that in that.
Trust me, we've been writing.
It's inspired by actual events, which it's interesting when you start going back. That was a tough one, because you sit there when you start kind of going back over your life and you look at some of the decisions and some of the things that you made, right? Some of those choices that you made. It can be an eye opener, it's a lot of soul searching right there, as far as, saying, okay, maybe we could have done this a little bit better, or maybe we should have done this differently. And maybe sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but it's still painful to have to kind of go through that again.
Sure. And there's some cathartic moments you could have by imagining or writing a different thing,
Yeah.
Just having fun with it, right? I think that's like the beauty of like this form of storytelling, film
Well,
and TV.
I think
Right? You
that's
can entertain people. Like you
Yeah.
take a sad, tragic moment and
Yeah.
find a way to tell an entertaining story.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I think that's a part of the reason why we wanted to work on the pilot of this TV show, because again, I know for me, I don't really hear a lot of stories about, you know, if you're doing a story on Hollywood, I hardly see any about Black people in Hollywood, you
No.
know, and particularly one that's a lead that's trying to break into the business, and maybe he was successful at one point and has to figure out, or the relationship that he has with his friends and stuff like that. And again, Lee and I we've always tried to push, what do we not see in the screen? What do we
Totally.
want to put out there, you know? And so that's something that's kind of near and dear to our heart, and we're almost finished with that. And
Oh, that's great.
and also we kind of developed a podcast
Yes.
that we came up with called Lee and
I'm a
Greg
fan.
Talk. Yeah, thank you. And it's just more playing around with animation form of the podcast, you know, where
Yes.
we can talk about anything. Technically, we can talk about movies, which we've done, and we could talk about. I think we just had one where we just talked about the Oscars. You know, oh my goodness. Does anybody care? And apparently not. Apparently not. So, you know, we're trying to open up our YouTube channel, Noir the Film. We're trying to build up our subscriber base, because now the industry has changed so much from when we got into it, that now even if Hollywood is interested, they go onto your YouTube channel. They look at how many followers you have. That makes a difference now.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know?
Well,
Yep.
hopefully we'll have the film done at the end of this year, and so we'll see what happens. You know,
Must be
it's
interesting to do post-production and everything while everything. I'm assuming you're still doing everything remotely, or how are you guys?
well. I mean,
how have you guys been doing post.
yeah, we get on a lot of Zoom calls.
Yeah,
right? You know,
that's
with
tough.
especially with our
No?
special effects guys that are
Yeah.
doing
Marvel
yeah,
special effects.
yeah,
Yeah.
the special effects are really coming along, and they really look great. And because of the type of movie it is, it's a monster movie technically. I mean, it really has a lot of demons and creatures in it. So we're having a lot of fun with that. And
Oh
I
my
think,
gosh!
yeah,
I really
I
have
think,
to come. I really have to come to this screening next time. I can't have
Yes,
any more.
yeah,
No
yeah.
more car accidents.
No more
well,
car accidents.
next screening hopefully will be the premiere. Hopefully
Yes,
we'll have a
yes.
premiere, and
Yeah.
it'll be later on this year. And but yeah, we're really excited about this. We think that because this is really, we've thought, well, you know, because we did it on our own, we figured that it would be the only time that we'd actually get our pure vision
Yeah.
on the screen, you know, from page to screen. And it's been a hard road, and it's taken us a few years to get it done. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm very excited about the fact if it's successful, it's going to be awesome. But if it's not, I can still live with it, because it was our work. It was what we did. You know, it was our choices. So I guess this is our chance to put up or shut up, right?
I mean, that's kind of what I said when I left Alibaba and started my own company. It's like because I was like, I'm tired of me complaining about things. And I was like, if I really believe in the things that I'm complaining about, then I need to figure it out. But yeah, it is tough, right? Because why do people have to rely on Hollywood, or why does Hollywood work? Because it is still the premier way to make and distribute films, right? Like no other place does it as well anywhere in the world. But it's about what you guys just said, because one of the things that I also realized that made me have confidence in my path is not just seeing Crazy Rich Asians or films like Get Out do well, but it's also when I was at Alibaba, I got to go to all these studios every year because they wanted Alibaba to invest in their movies. So I got to go in and read the scripts, see their slates. And I'll tell you, every studio that I went into, like, you cannot doubt the impeccable taste of their projects, of the writing, of the cast, of the director. But as I reflected on what these slates of films would look like, I was like, I am not truly excited about any of these movies, because if I can imagine the poster, they have the same stars and the same look, of a movie poster that I've seen year after year after year after year, right? And I think if we can figure out how to break through, right, with some of these films that are fresh but familiar to audiences, I think that is the winning formula. It sounds easy, but I think it's really hard, right? Like I'm so excited, like this weekend, to see both Mortal Kombat and Demon Slayer. Like Demon Slayer is actually the bigger surprise for me.
Yeah.
I don't know as much about Demon Slayer, but to see it make 20+ million like during this time as a foreign language film that was dubbed, I think it's pretty cool. It shows the audience wants something else.
I heard about Demon Slayer. If you want to know our review or our take on Mortal Kombat, we just did a podcast on that.
Is it up now?
Not yet.
Not yet. It'll be up in a day or two. So.
Yeah,
I was curious. I am curious. I have my thoughts too, and I'm sure we're actually quite aligned.
Yeah. So we had things to say, and Lee had some very colorful things to say about that film. And
I mean, I can't tell you based on the. I will have to tell you after I saw the film, I was like, wow, kudos to the Warner Brothers marketing team.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, you know, the thing you think is like 20 years he had to develop that project.
I would say years. Though, I would say my favorite of the film was the first 5 minutes. That first 5-10 minutes.
Yes.
I really wanted to see that story.
I just want a Sub-Zero versus Scorpion movie.
Yes. I think everything else you could have gotten rid of. But no, we discussed about that. We just had one yesterday where we were talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and that was a really good one. Where again, and I think that's also kind of what I think the podcast for us does, is that it allows us to talk about things like race and things about race in Hollywood and what does that mean, and have actual conversations, and not necessarily just the stuff that you might have heard over and over again. So
the crazy thing is, like, I am tired of talking about it, but it's at the same time, I know it's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm tired. Like I don't want to have these. I'd rather have conversations about other things, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I mean, again, I think that the key for us is always trying to be entertaining first, of whatever story that we create, and let the message be more depending on what the story is. I mean, some stories might be about the message itself, but let it be seen more than just preached. And it's a balancing act, to kind of do it. But I think we're constantly always just try to be. But I think the best way to do it, and I think you're doing that, Jason, is saying, "Hey, look, I like Westerns, okay." But I want to put somebody that I haven't seen in a Western, or a musical. It's like, and let me do something like that. I think when you mentioned Get Out, what a great example, because I loved Get Out, and the idea that, and I think it's almost halfway through. I remember seeing that in the movie theater, and I remember when spoilers for Get Out, spoilers, but you should have seen the movie by now. But that one moment,
it only got nominated didn't get nominated.
It won for best screenplay, original screenplay. But that one moment where, and I saw it in a theater full of white people, and that one moment where the Daniel Kaluuya character,
was I in there with you, Greg? I can't.
No. I actually was by myself.
He has other.
I have. No, I won't even say I had other friends. I actually saw it by myself, which is sad. But no, but there's that moment where he's strangling the white girl, that was his girlfriend, and I could see the audience just going, "Kill her, kill her!" And then when the cop showed up, what you thought was the cop, everybody I remember just going, "Oh fuck, he's so fucked." And then when it was his friend, then everybody laughed, and this was white people. I mean, we got to a point where a black guy is strangling a white woman, and yet the audience is cheering him on. That's great storytelling, because you understood. I mean, you've been through you understood what the story's about. And if you can start breaking down barriers like that, where you're rooting for the new Captain America that's black, or just stuff that you don't used to seeing. Or I loved watching Crazy Rich Asian. I had a conversation with a friend of mine about that, and I said the reason that worked is it's a rom-com that I would not have seen if they were white.
Yep.
The fact that they were Asian, I was intrigued. I said, let me see this.
Yep.
And you didn't have to think about it when you were watching it, and yet you still learned something from it,
Yep.
you know? And I thought that was interesting. So those are the kind of stories I would love to be able to tell
Yep.
without necessarily having to put it in your face.
Yep.
Well, I think the one thing that Hollywood I think they're kind of coming around, and hopefully they will eventually even more so, is that we're all fundamentally kind of have, the same emotions, the same feelings, the same reactions to things, right? And I hate the fact that they constantly are in the idea that if people are going to identify with someone, they got to look exactly like that person. And that's just not true.
No.
You can identify with any race, you can identify with any gender, so long as the heart is there, so long as the emotion is there. And if you have that connection to where we all can relate to, then it doesn't matter, and we're seeing a little bit of that now, and hopefully we'll see more of it later on. But yeah, it's really drives me nuts when they keep on coming back with these ideas that, well, if you put a minority in a film or something like that, we won't be able to get a broad audience because they won't be able to relate or identify.
Or
with it,
the thing that I hear a lot, and I bought into this. So before Crazy Rich Asians, the revelation for me of Crazy Rich Asians is that every member of that cast is a superstar. And what I remember hearing in meetings, and this is what I felt you were kind of saying, Lee, is that like they say that where you have to have like a Tom Cruise or
you have to have a white person in there, right? To
or Angelina Jolie or
But see, but they would say, they would never say a white person. They would always say some box office star.
Yes,
we all know they're white people. That's what
they would say like Scarlett Johansson, right? That's why she's in Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right? But look, but if you don't develop actors, people of color as lead characters, you'll never get to that point. If somebody and it was Marvel, did not take a chance on Black Panther and Ryan Coogler to direct, that would not have been $1 billion movie. Yep. So, and having an all black cast. So you have to put your money where your mouth is. And on our podcast, we were talking about this, and I was saying, and I'm just curious, have you seen Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Not yet, but you can say it. I'm not exactly sure if I'll watch the whole thing. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan,
right?
So but I'm okay.
But there was a moment where on the podcast I mentioned, I was telling Lee this that there was a sign that says Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then it changed to Captain America and Winter Soldier. I was caught off guard on how I felt about that. And there was a certain amount of pride that I felt that I wasn't expecting to feel, because I knew that's what the story was about, was Sam Wilson becoming Captain America. But the fact that this show did that, they actually did Captain America, Winter Soldier, and then they announced Captain America 4 with Anthony Mackie. Yeah. I started to feel that hope, in the sense that it's not just Black America that was rooting for this or not, or other people of color, but this is the white establishment that also accepted that and said, no, this is our guy. It's possible. You can make those strides.
And the crazy thing is, like, because they do that movie or that franchise can go on and make even more money.
Even more money. I mean, I remember, let me tell you, I remember when I heard there was going to be a Black Spider-Man and named Miles Morales. And I remember the internet losing their shit because, it's Peter Parker, it's this, and, and that feeling of ever accepting them. And then when Into the Spider-Verse came out, holy crap. Yeah. Every white reviewer just loving who that character is, and fans and stuff like that embrace Spider-Man, and it was not referred to as Black Spider-Man. He was Spider-Man.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's the wrong conversation. It's not black or white. It's just fresh storytelling.
Exactly.
you've told that story from that perspective for how many decades?
Yeah.
And if you just tell a similar story but using a different perspective, you can make it so much more fresh and bring
And
in
rich.
like the recent analogy I've been saying, instead of like having to fight over like the market share of one pie, you're baking a new pie, right?
Yes.
Like you didn't know you wanted that, right? That's why I said like fan service can be dangerous. Even the fans didn't know they wanted Miles Morales, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But when you gave it to them, they're like, "Oh, that's tasty."
Now
give me some more.
and you're seeing kids wearing either Miles Morales costumes, white and black, or Latino.
Yeah.
You're seeing them dressed like, I remember when Black Panther came out, how many kids of color were seeing themselves truly being represented. And I'm not talking about just represented, but I mean, I'm talking about getting the budget that any of the Avengers would have gotten, getting the prestige that any of the Avengers would have gotten, or any white star would have gotten. It's just saying we want to just be equal. You know, we want to have the same equality. And that's what I think inclusion is all about. It's just stop treating us as the other, and let's actually we're all Americans. And even people that are not, American, it's other countries do it a lot of times better. I mean, the thing I find fascinating with China is China has they have the biggest movie market in the world, bigger than Hollywood. And to the point that Hollywood is trying to catch up to China, and sometimes it's pandering when they try to do it, because and some of my Asian friends would tell me, it's like, well, we don't need, because I thought it was interesting that like Mulan did not do well in China, and even as successful as Crazy Rich Asian did here in China, it was okay. That's because China has their own market. They have their own movies. They have their own heroes. They have their own way of kind of doing things.
I mean, yes, exactly, and that's the thing that I think needs to be the narrative needs to be switched. The inclusion is great, but actually I think what needs to get in the heads of everyone in Hollywood is that it actually is great business.
Yes.
Right. It will make a ton of money. On the China and the Crazy Rich Asian thing, I do have my own theory. There's many reasons why that film didn't do well. What you mentioned is one of them. That they already have their own rom-coms, so they don't need this one. But also, right now, or China is going through a moment where they don't want to glamorize people that are rich and wealthy.
Okay, that's interesting.
They don't want to glamorize those narratives. So it's not necessarily they're going to prohibit them, but they're not going to allow folks to promote them.
Right. Okay.
And then the other thing is the marketing. Warner Brothers did the movie. Warner Brothers did not know how to market that movie to the Chinese audience.
Now, is that Crazy Rich Asian or Mulan?
Crazy Rich Asians.
Okay, yeah.
They did not know how to market that.
Yeah.
I don't think they tried, because I think the executives at Warner Brothers China, I believe that they did not want to. They would have to have like really gone to bat for that film.
Right.
And I don't think they wanted to use up their political capital.
Yeah.
To fight for that movie.
Yeah.
Because they would have had to.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think in order to change the studio, the thing that drives me a little nuts about Hollywood a lot is that I think they do a lot of virtue signaling a lot of times in their films, in the sense that if they do a story about racism or something like that, a lot of times it's kind of patting themselves on the back. I kind of felt a little bit of that in the Trial of the Chicago 7. Where it was kind of like, I said, I can kind of understand why conservatives get frustrated with liberal Hollywood, because look, I'm a liberal, and
sorry, guys, my phone went dead.
All good.
Nah, it's okay. But
you're back.
Yeah, but I mean, I was kind of like, it's like there's ways of telling stories that you connect with the audience, and then there's ways that you're doing a presentation that feels Oscar bait, and I a lot of times I see that with Hollywood. Or if they do put out something that's really powerful, whatever. But what about what are you doing behind the scenes? What are you doing to truly change? Do the work, really do the work. And sometimes they don't want to do the work.
Yep.
And
that's why I think, we all have to, even though I commend you guys for all the work that you've done since. I can't wait to see Noir, and then I'm glad you guys are doing your podcast. But I think we all need to do that, like what you're doing, and like going off and doing the crowdfunding and doing things on your own so you can see your vision. But I think also we need to be like the pain in the neck for Hollywood to keep on
absolutely
keep on like trying to change things and getting that vision that we want. I do think it's doable. Otherwise, I guess I wouldn't be here doing this.
I think also if
difficult.
I think if the best way to do that, of course, is if you can create something successful, right? If it's money talks. If it's successful and they see that example and they go, oh well, we want more of that, of course. Because they don't want to actually take that risk themselves. So it takes the independent filmmaker, that entrepreneur, if you will, to go where they're not willing to, and actually show them that, oh no, there's a better way of doing it.
And there's money there.
There's money there. Yeah. I remember we came out here to LA. We would be in meetings and we would just be talking about, John Woo's Hard Boiled, The Killer. We'd be talking about Once Upon a Time in China, and Jackie Chan, Police Story, and you would look at the studio execs and they would just have this glazed look, like, what the hell are these guys talking about? So you don't know, but that's what they were used. They were used to doing the same old thing over and over and over and over. And I think that's what kind of bit us when we did War, because we came in there wanting to do this epic, kind of sprawling saga, and they were kind of wanting to do Cradle to the Grave.
Yep. So at the end of the day, we've learned that you should have been the directors.
Well, to a certain extent, or at least maybe John Woo.
Well, but what we did learn is we should have been producers on it. And I think that the key is, and this is something we've talked about, being a producer has more power than being a director. And that's the thing that I've been focusing on.
In Hollywood.
Absolutely. Because it was the producers that were able to make those decisions. And it was the producers that was able to cast a director.
Just to let you know, they pinned it on the studio.
Yeah, there you go.
The producers pinned it on the studio.
Yeah, but I mean, so if we would have at least gotten in as, even if there were that, co-producers or whatever, that would have been a foot in the door of having a little bit of a voice. And that's the key. So we have to start aiming for those higher positions. That's why we produce everything that we do. I don't think we'll ever just willingly, and never say never. But I think if it's something that we want to direct, then we're going to produce.
Yep. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate this catch up, and we should find time to, I don't know, like grab coffee, grab drinks, grab lunch, something.
Hey, grab drinks. Absolutely.
Well, I guess there's supposed to be. Have you got your flu shots, by the way?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you got both?
Yeah.
I got to get my second one next month.
Okay.
But I guess by June, everything's supposed to be kind of back to normal. Hopefully.
I'm getting mine on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Oh yeah. All right. There you go.
But So I am thinking, but we should definitely catch up. And congratulations, by the way, just on what you're doing on your company, on your podcast.
Thank you. It's very early days. It's a struggle.
Same here.
We know.
Same here. I mean, but no, seriously, man, I think it's great at what you're doing. And if so, everybody go. How can people support you? Meaning, where can they, find your podcasts? And tell us about your show, please. Tell us about your thing.
Well, I just started it, and it's mainly more for fun. And so it's called The Linsider. I just registered thelinsider.com, so people can go there. And really, you're my ninth 8th episode. So
Okay.
oh no, you're my 9th episode. Sorry, 9th
Nice.
episode next week. Doing once a week. I did it since March. March 1st is when I launched.
Mhm.
And my goal is that this entire conversation that we've had today, you guys probably feel the same way based on what we said. But these conversations, I think, are really important, and these are not the norm in Hollywood.
Mhm.
Even among like friends of mine that are Asian or people of color, these are not normal conversations that we have. And
Right.
this podcast, I call it a discussion of entertainment from a cross-cultural and interdisciplinary perspective.
Mhm.
I say that because I don't want to have any sort of race or any identification like that in this. But
Right.
these are the type of conversations that I think are so important, because it's a point of view that I don't hear enough of. But
Right.
I think if more people, but it adds so much character to what's going on in the moment, and I think it adds, like what we're going back to, like it would make so much money.
Yeah.
if we make
Absolutely.
these stories, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why I decided to do this podcast, because I was like, well, instead of like, I can do something productive, and instead of like, as a producer, I'm not a writing producer, so I just produce, and so I'm waiting a lot, right? Because I'm waiting for the writers, I'm waiting to attach a director, then I'm waiting for a studio, someone to say yes. So I'm waiting a lot. And with the podcast, I was like, well, it's something that I can do. I can just flip the switch, record,
Right.
just even if it's just for me. Like I didn't think too ambitiously when I started. I was just like, even if it's just me talking to my friends.
Mhm.
The great thing is, like, this conversation we had today, I was like, if no one heard this, I'd be like happy.
Oh yeah.
I'd be so happy.
Yeah.
I don't care, right?
Well, look, we
And
got
so-
together.
Yeah. So that was the thing. I was like, and then if someone else hears it and I can share a perspective to them that they resonate with, that they can get something from, that's even better, right? And
Right.
then, I do hope that I can build something from it, because I know, I'm more of an introvert. I don't like branding myself or talking about myself, but I do realize that's part of the game.
Mhm.
So, and I'm not a flashy kind of guy, and I don't want to be. So the podcast format also allows me over time to take people on a journey and to tell them about stories and to share with them perspectives. And like, I think my friends are awesome. And that's why I started, like, everyone that I've had on my podcast so far, like, I know pretty well, or I've known them for a long time. And that was the goal, because I think they're like, it's also like, I specifically, like, I thought about, like, the people that I want to have on to, like, showcase, like, the world that I believe in, the world that I see, that I currently don't see reflected, but I want to see.
Absolutely. Well, no, it's great, man. And we will be, you got 2 followers right here. So we'll be supporting
Thank you.
And I'm curious.
I'm gonna tag all your stuff too. So I'm gonna be following up with you guys. I need to get headshots from you guys, and we're gonna do a thing.
Are you a subscriber to the Noir the film
on YouTube?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I have to.
You have to. Do that today. Do that now. Yes,
I will.
As a matter of fact,
I will. I'll do it once you put up your Mortal Kombat episode, huh?
Okay.
When's that going
that's
up?
a deal. No, that's a deal. Because
probably maybe tomorrow. I think we can probably get up tomorrow or Thursday at the latest.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll subscribe so it tells me about. It'll notify me.
Yes, it'll notify you. But the reason we did Lee and Greg talk is the same reason you did your podcast. It was just while we're the process of finishing up Noir is long and tenuous, and sometimes it just doesn't come fast enough. We needed to keep our sanity. We need to vent, and the animation format seemed to work very well for us to. And plus, we wanted to do a podcast some 15 years ago. We just never got. Now we got around to it when we're now one of 100,000s that's doing it.
Millions.
Yeah.
But if people are interested in us even more, please follow us at Noir the Film on YouTube.
I'm definitely going to plug you guys, but you guys should think. I want you guys to think a little bit, or I will support you in doing a little bit more, because I think you guys like. I don't watch that many of these. There's a lot of film review podcasts on YouTube, and I don't. Did you guys get that format from somewhere, or is that an original format with the animation and?
Oh
No, that
that's-
was us.
That
That
was
was
us. Yeah.
Because that's what I was gonna say. I don't feel like I've seen it before,
Mhm.
and I think
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Thank you.
Because here's the magic: like you guys could be anywhere and be doing it, right?
Yeah.
And that's
We
awesome.
pretty much are.
Yeah.
Well,
and
again,
so it's really cool, and it's fresh. It's cool, and I think you guys have a perspective that is not out there in the mainstream that I think people need to hear, right? And
Yes.
so yeah, definitely.
well, wait till you get a load of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, Captain America and the Winter Soldier
Okay.
podcast.
But it's the best way. Like, do I have to watch all the? How much?
I'm gonna say
there's going to be a spoiler in there? Because I notice you flag it sometimes, and with Kong.
Well, I would say
this.
I would say this: if it's a spoiler on it and you haven't seen it, then you can wait for it. But we also talked about, again, like when we talked about the Oscars, you can watch that.
Yeah, the Oscars. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about. We actually
The
had
Oscars.
one about theaters closing, like the ArcLight closed. We actually have a conversation on that.
I feel like the theaters are going to come back though.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's what I'm saying. So those are ones that you can watch without having to. But if we're always going to put a spoiler on something so that people know, if you haven't seen it, you may not want to check it out. And since you've seen Mortal Kombat, we'll have a spoiler on that. But there's not much to spoil in that movie. But yeah, but if anybody's interested in Noir, you can follow Noir. We have our social media covers it.
I'll definitely link it in the show notes. And then you guys have a website, don't you?
No, we don't have a website.
We have a website, but we don't have it up yet. So we'll get around to that. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay, you're just on YouTube right now. Noir.
Yeah, we're just trying to get
on the
subscribers.
film. We got Facebook, Instagram, and all that good stuff too. That you can also go on.
Cool.
And check out what we got going on. But we'll keep you guys updated on what's happening. We're getting close. I'm very excited. We're probably another month away from doing the sound mix. So yeah, we're getting to the final stages.
And be on the lookout for our doc, Tough Ain't Enough, conversation with Albert S. Ruddy. We're in the process of getting that out there to audience very soon.
Okay, great. Yeah, maybe you guys can come back when you guys have it out then.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. I'd love that.
Cool. All right, I'm going to end this recording. Thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
All right.